Leaders who make their team members part of the process of change may see greater adoption.
Once people are part of the solution, they'll have buy-in. And buy-in is where you believe and you understand, like, hey, this is not just the boss's plan. We sat in the conference room and we came up with this, and I'm believing in this.
That's Gregory Archbold, author of Fail, Fight, Finish: Leadership Lessons You Don't Learn in the Classroom. Greg talks about creating buy-in through shared leadership and change. He joins Da Vinci's Jenny Fadulo and me next on Powered by Learning.
Powered by Learning is brought to you by Da Vinci Interactive. Da Vinci's approach to learning is grounded in 30 years of innovation and expertise. We use proven strategies and leading technology to develop solutions that empower learners to improve quality and boost performance. Learn more at davinci.com.
Joining me today is Da Vinci Director Learning Experience Jenny Fadulo and our guest Gregory Archbold, the author of Fail, Fight, Finish: Leadership Lessons You Don't Learn in the Classroom. Greg, it's so nice to meet you, and I'm happy to be a part of this reunion for you and Jenny today.
I know this will be the first time in my history of doing either TV or podcast interviews where I actually know the person interviewing me. And she knows things from years ago when I was just a little munion.
Well,
So
I think
this is interesting.
we should just shift the whole podcast interview right now to what Greg was like in high school. Jenny, talk to us about how the two of you know each other.
Well, I don't know, did we go to junior high together? I'm not sure, but we definitely were in high school together and graduated in 1988. And I
Woo!
believe we were in the same homeroom because
Yes.
my last name
Mine was
was B
Ball.
and Ball, and
Yeah.
you are Archbold. So we shared that homeroom as well.
Yeah. Jen was kind of quiet. She was kind of quiet, and I would say not so quiet.
Yeah,
I was not so quiet.
pretty
So
large personality.
yeah. So
Oh.
it was a good time. It was a good time.
Well, I'm excited to learn about your book and hear the conversation the two of you are going to have today.
All right, so a little bit about me. I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago, go figure. And then my dad took a job with a company and we moved to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, where I spent my high school years. And then after that, I joined the Army and I started my career in emergency medicine. So basically, I did paramedic work until I came up with the plan to become a commissioned officer. And I went to officer candidate school and worked as a military police officer. I had the privilege of leading soldiers all around the world in all sorts of different environments, from Cuba, Afghanistan, Germany, Italy, Bosnia, and some very difficult situations, which were awesome. And when I retired, I kind of focused on something that was important to me, which was leadership, but I didn't want to write a traditional leadership book. So I wanted to take not only the things that I did well, but really focus on the things that I did not do well, because everyone is going to fail. It's up to the people to fight and how you finish. So that's kind of where the title came from. And since it's not theory written, that's why I added the leadership lessons you don't learn in the classroom. So I think it is something that can help all leaders at all levels.
Awesome. All right, I'm going to start out. And Greg, this is going to be a tough one, but I don't know if you realize today, the exact date, June 9th, is pretty significant. My daughter's graduating, but that's not why. 38 years ago today, June 9th, we graduated
Wow.
from
Oh,
high school.
wow.
So
I did
it
not
was
know that.
literally the date. Yeah. So as I read your book, Fail, Fight, Finish, what struck me wasn't just the stories, right? It was the wisdom you earned through those experiences and then how you intentionally translated those into lessons for leaders. So let me ask you my question. When you look back at the 18-year-old kid walking across the graduation stage 38 years ago, what do you think would surprise him the most about the leader you've become and the journey that got you here?
Oh, wow, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that my 18-year-old self will be shocked is, number one, that I wrote a book. I will tell you a quick story. everyone knows that people who read are usually generally on the smarter end of the spectrum when it comes to things. It's simply because their vocabulary, and that's why, when we help with our kids during the SATs and stuff, if they don't have good reading comprehension, the test in general is just difficult for them.
Hmm. Hmm.
My dad promised to pay me $100 for every book that I read in high school. You know how many books I read?
None.
Zero. Zero.
Oh.
Because I just didn't like to read, and it was always difficult for me because reading, my brain moves so fast that reading a lot of times out loud, I'd never liked to read out loud even when I was in high school, and it took me a long time to get over that. So I think one of the biggest things 18-year-old me would be surprised about is the fact that I actually sat down and wrote a book,
And wrote a book.
and that I actually get in front of people and talk. I think those two were the big two things. Since I was such a talker back in high school, I think the other thing that would be surprising was, and I know we'll probably talk about it, is the power of leadership silence. The fact that you learn so much from people by just giving them an opportunity to just let them talk. Too many
Mhm.
leaders will say, "Well, what do you think?" They give them about 2 seconds and then they go right in, and they don't give people an opportunity to share what it is. And leaders have to remember, one of my um, keynotes is, you as a leader are not the smartest person in the room.
Right, right.
You
Yeah.
have to
Let
listen.
me, yeah, you have to listen. And perfect segue. So I'm going to jump right to chapter 6. Okay. So
Okay.
this one was about you saying the most influential leaders earn trust and make decisions by listening first, speaking last, and creating space for others to be heard. So when I heard, and my daughter is big on Hamilton, when I heard listen first, speak last, it popped. And I don't know if you've
It's
seen the musical
I
Hamilton,
have
yeah,
not,
but
but
it's
I will have to.
smile,
but and
smile
you
less, talk
uh,
or no, talk
no,
talk
talk
less,
less,
smile more. Yeah.
smile more.
Okay,
So
I like
that
it.
that is a lyric in there, but it's really Aaron Burr's philosophy. So his leadership style, he's really the cautious, observant, waits for the right moment. Whereas Alexander Hamilton, he's the outspoken, decisive, willing to take risks, right? So there's Burr telling him to talk less and smile more. Your chapter seems to argue for something a little bit more in the middle, right? So great leaders listen first but still speak with conviction. So where do you see that balance? I'm curious. And when does listening become leadership, but then when does leadership need to stop and make the call, right?
I think the first thing what listening does, I firmly believe that listening builds credibility. When when you have a senior leader, and I like to teach this when I do workshops, is
Mhm.
ask a question because people want to feel valued. When, as a leader, if I say, "Hey, Jen, we have X, Y, and Z going on. What do you think about that?" I should give you a few minutes to compose your thoughts and give me an answer. Because what I'm not only trying to do is not only let whatever plan we're having become our plan, not mine, because that's
Mhm.
what listening does. And I think the second thing is, I'm trying to develop Jen to someday sit in my seat. And the only way that I can do that is if I listen to the things that she is bringing to the table. It
Mhm.
you can't just always be, well, I'm in charge, I'm going to do all the talking, and never listen to everyone else. And that's why, like, when leaders run meetings, they should always speak last. Why? Because everyone will start talking. If you say, "Hey, I think we're going to do this. What do y'all think?" Well, you've already told them what you thought. Instead of saying,
Exactly.
"Hey, what do you all think?" And then I sit back and I listen. And sometimes that silence can be very, very awkward because no one wants to
Mhm.
either, most people don't ever want to disagree with the senior person that's in the room. But I think the biggest thing to remember, that's where the leadership starts, is by listening and saying, hey, why are you listening? Because you're trying to build credibility, but you're also trying to develop those other people that are in the room. Because if you're a leader, you're not going to be there forever.
Hmm.
You're going to
No,
have to start developing others to come sit in your seat.
right. I love that. And I don't know what chapter it was, but you definitely said that if leaders ask the question, but then provide the answer right away, everyone else is just trying to validate or support that. And then, like you just said, you're not developing them to think for themselves and to solution themselves. They're just reacting to what you provided. So that taking that backseat and listening first is so critical. Yeah.
It's critical because there's nothing worse than every time you talk to your boss, you never get a word in edgewise.
Hmm.
Like, and we've all worked for someone who just continuously does that. And it's really difficult for senior leaders. Why? Because they're expecting everyone to listen to them. And that's a good thing that people listen to you, but your leadership starts when you start developing others to sit in your seat. And the only way you're going to be able to give them the opportunity to think. And their answers may be wrong. And guess what? That's
That's
okay. But
okay.
you've got to tell them, hey, Jen, have you thought about this, and this? And then
Hmm.
again, what we would call in the military tactical pause and listen and give them an opportunity to speak.
Yep. Yep. So, in the next chapter, you talk about exceptional leaders knowing when to coach for skill, mentor for vision, and lead with responsibility. And of course, with our background in learning and development, skill, mentoring, we work with leaders all the time to develop training that way. But the lasting impact comes from mastering all three. You also talk about the mental model and the mirror test. Oh, I love the mirror test, right? So you're asking yourself who's coaching you, who's mentoring you, who's leading you, but then you flip it and you say, who are you coaching, who are you mentoring, and who are you leading? So I'm curious, what inspired you to organize the chapter around those three roles? And how have you seen leaders use that? Are they trying to be more intentional about a certain role where they realize, maybe I'm lacking in that regard?
Well, I think one of the things that I try to tell people is this: mentorship. We use that word synonymously with coaching and leadership. So
Hmm.
I look at leadership. Leadership is your job. That is your job, to lead people in whatever organization you're in. Mentorship is what I call a choice. When I ask people, do you have a mentor? If they say they don't, you have to ask yourself, are you mentorship worthy? Because mentorship is not necessarily my responsibility. Mentorship, I am trying to guide you in a certain direction so your life can be better. It's no different than being a parent. I'm not there to be your friend. I'm there to guide you so your life is better in the long run. And obviously, in the corporate space, we're looking to guide you into a certain area. But if you're not listening, if you're the person who shows up to work at 8:59 when you're supposed to start at 9 o'clock,
Right.
and you're leaving at 4:50, and when we do have meetings, you're not providing any information, maybe I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time trying to get you into that regional manager position because you're not showing me that you're doing anything. So I
Hmm.
ask people, the first question is, if you don't have a mentor, you have to ask yourself why. Secondly, mentorship is not something I go to someone and say, Susan, will you be my mentor? No, mentorship usually starts with a cup of coffee. Hey, Susan, you got time for a cup of coffee? Let's sit down. I have a couple things I'd like to go over with you, and let's learn and see. And then I start getting advice. But if you're not listening to my advice, I'm not necessarily going to waste my time.
No,
Now,
that's
when
like all a natural evolution of the relationship that you build with that person.
Exactly. But I think the key thing when it comes to mentorship is, number one, it's built over time. And if you are a person that does not have a mentor, you've got to ask yourself why you don't have
Right.
one. And I think it's important, because normally a leader who is is mentoring, is usually being mentored, because that's the first question I ask everyone who I mentor is who are you sharing what I'm giving you?
Mhm.
And if you're not, then we're kind of defeating the purpose, you know, because you have to know, say, hey, how do I help someone get through these hard times? How do I help them solve simple leadership problems? You know, which is one of the big ones that I see all the time that people always come to me with is how do they give constructive feedback without their team hating them?
Mhm.
And that is
Yeah.
probably one of the most difficult things that mentors and coaches alike are having difficulties with.
Agreed.
But I think I ask that because I think it is so vital because it not only helps the leader, but I think it also helps the person who is receiving it. And as we, teach people this, I think anybody in learning and development should have an exercise where we ask them, hey, write down three people that you're mentoring. What was the last conversation you had? And what were the last three conversations you had with your mentor? Because the relationship only works if you are reaching out and you are also reaching up and reaching down, is what I like to call it.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Mhm. That's great advice, without a doubt.
I hope that made sense.
It did. It did. Um, so jump into chapter 11. I'm going to skip a few, but
Okay, yeah.
I liked when you talked about great leaders having traditions, right? We all have things that we've learned throughout the years, maybe through a mentor something, but we've got to relentlessly challenge that could become outdated. So there could be a foundation we're building, but we've got to, continually improve. So in that chapter, you talk about the roast pan story. I don't know if Susan knows the roast pan
I do
story, but
not.
yeah. But maybe Greg can fill you in. But really, it made me laugh because I found the connection with. So, I manage a team of instructional designers and project managers, and we really pride ourselves on strong process, but always asking, is this creating value or is this creating more work? Does it make sense? Right? We use the phrase process with purpose. So, this chapter felt like it was almost an argument for that philosophy. How do you know when a process is strengthening your culture or if execution is quietly becoming a limitation and you're being warned against it?
If you are 100% honest and as a leader, you can ask if you have clear communication with your team, I would simply say just ask them.
Hmm.
If you ask them, like, we're going to add this process to, I don't care, whatever it is, ask someone. And don't ask the manager because a lot of times the manager will always tell you, um, well, yeah, boss, this is great. This is perfect. But if you ask that, what I would call ground level worker, does this make sense? They will tell you.
Hmm.
They will 100% tell you. So I think the best way to figure that out is to just simply ask someone. One of the things I talk about, especially like big organizations, especially older organizations, they have this legacy plan of how they are going to operate. And they use that phrase, we've always done it this way.
Hmm.
Well, just
Hmm.
because you've always done it this way, don't make it right. You know, and that's why I don't care what it is that you do after every class. I'm assuming you guys do some form of what I call the after actions review, right?
Hmm.
Which, what were we supposed to do? What actually happened? And what was supposed to happen, right? And then you have to, and here's where leaders have to step up is why did the things that happened, why did they happen? Was it a lack of resources? Did training not go well with so and so because let's say you're teaching an online class and the video stuff wasn't working, or if you're using polling that wasn't working and the students said, hey, this class wasn't any good. Well, why? Well, the polling didn't work. Is it because the instructor wasn't trained, because that's a training thing that we can fix, or is it something that we need to talk about buying new software? So you have to start digging deep and start asking what I call the three whys. Like, why did this not work? Well, why did it not work? Well, it didn't work because of this. Well, hey, why do we do this? If you usually do the three whys, you can usually get to the root cause of any problem.
Hmm.
And then start asking, because, oh, well, training didn't go well, why didn't it go well, because of this. Is it a training issue, or is it a what I call a software or hardware issue, something that you need to purchase because they're outdated, if that makes sense.
It does. It does. So quickly, Susan, the roast pan story, and Greg, tell me if I get this wrong, but something that was passed down from generations is, the next daughter's preparing the roast for the
Oh,
family, and she's always cutting off the ends of the roast, and it was passed down from generation to generation, and finally someone said, why do we cut off the ends of the roast? And it was simply because it didn't fit in the roast pan the
yeah.
first time.
So
Right?
just
We've
imagine.
always done it that
Yeah,
way,
we've always
right?
done it that way. So
Yes.
it goes basically, if every time you made a roast, right, you saw your mom cut off the ends and put it in there.
We're
Now
gonna
you
do
are
it.
cooking the roast for your kids. You're doing it. Your daughter comes in and says, "Mom, why do you cut the ends off the roast?" I don't know. Ask your grandma.
Right.
So
Yeah,
your
yeah.
daughter calls grandma. Grandma says, I cut the ends off the roast because my pan was too small. And that was really what it comes down to. So
Oh, that's funny.
sometimes we do things simply we do them out of institutional habit, not because it's the right thing to do.
Right, and we're not
Mhm.
asking, "Is this adding value? Is there a reason for this?" Yeah,
Yeah,
practices,
not that you wanna
yeah.
do change for change's sake, but you should ask yourself each time, "Why are we doing this?" Just like you
Mhm.
said.
A-
Yeah,
And
yeah.
one of the big things, when we talk about change, and this kind of is in the middle of it, but we talk about change, and you would swear you use the F word when you say change in an organization, because people get really, really excited and they get upset, especially when the new boss comes in and they want to change things. And I tell a couple of stories about some things, but the big thing that we have to teach our leaders, and as we are instructing people, we need to think about, is this a problem or is it a preference?
Mhm,
And
mhm.
if it is a problem, then let's fix it. If it's a preference, if three of us are in a conversation and I'm the only person, then we probably need to take a look at that.
Yep,
Because if it's not a problem, and again, the big thing is, if you are a good leader and you have good communication skills, all you have to do is ask people and they will tell you the truth. Everyone wants to be heard. So all you have to do is ask and says, "Hey, does this make sense?" Right?
yep,
Because
yep.
too many times we are changing, organizations are massively changing all these things simply because the boss has a specific preference. I had
Yeah,
a
so
boss one time who decided to he was a very digital person, very digital, didn't want paper. So when you had meetings with him, all of us had like iPad kind of things, and that's how he wanted to do briefings. And it was like it was too hard to send. He made things very difficult, but it wasn't a problem. It was simply this guy's preference.
preference, yep.
Yes.
So, talking about change, perfect segue. Chapter 13 is about change. And
Hmm.
throughout the book, I wanted to find one quote that we could really, study and analyze. And throughout, I'm like, oh, this is the quote we're going to talk about. And then I got to chapter 13 and I found the quote. And let me read it.
Okay.
It is, do not present your change as a finished product. Present it as a shared solution. When people feel as though they are part of the story, they will help you write the ending. So when I thought about that, it's not really about change management. It's about ego and certainty and identity. And I underlined it because I felt like that was a thread that kind of carried throughout your entire book. I wonder though, why do so many leaders still walk into a room with a fully baked solution and expect everyone else to execute it? Like, why are we still not getting it right? Is it ego? Is it impatience? Is it fear of appearing incompetent, uncertain? What are your thoughts?
I hate to say it. The problem is a lot of it is ego. We start to dig so deep into our title that
Yep.
we forget that our purpose is to teach, coach, mentor, and lead people.
Yep.
And that's where it comes in simple. And that's why it's so important if you start with open communication channels, because I can walk into any organization that I used to work with and talk to people and say, hey, what do you think? And people will honestly tell me, hey, Greg, I don't think this is a good idea. Well, why don't you think it? Because I always tell people, if you don't like something I say, don't tell me you just don't like it because it's dumb. You're going to have to come up with a different course of action. And I'm open to listen to it. And I think I give one or two examples in the book about somebody telling me, like, hey, Greg, we need to change this. Well, why? Well, here's why. Wow, I never thought of it that way. Because again, we are not, as leaders, you're not the smartest person in the room. But too many people, they get caught up in their ego and they get caught up in their title that says, well, I'm in charge and here's what we're going to do. But if you want buy-in from people, you have to tie them into the solution. That's where we kind of roll in the silence. Hey
Mhm.
team, our last quarter, let's say sales numbers weren't so great. I would love to hear what you all have to say and think about how we can move things forward. You have to stop and be quiet, and eventually someone will, because somebody will say, okay, I'm going to wait for somebody else to talk. And I've been in rooms where I sat there just like this. I
Mhm.
wasn't going to jump in and start talking. I was going to let the silence take over. And then somebody said, well, hey, why don't we do this? And then somebody said, you know what? I was thinking the same thing. Why don't we add this? And then, because now it's not Greg's idea, it's our idea.
And
And
Mhm.
once it's our idea, once people believe they are part of the solution, they're going to be part of it. And everyone on the leadership team needs to be on the same sheet of music, because if it's the boss's idea, when people are in the break room or they're out having lunch and they'll be like, man, Greg came up with this idea, I really don't want to do it, but he's the boss, so we got to do it. No, 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 no. Once we go out to execute a plan, it's all of our plans and we all have to own that. But you have to be able to develop the relationships with your team by doing some of the things, we talked about listening and making sure that if you bring them in to do it, and then you celebrate the wins. Let's say, hey,
Mhm.
we're doing this new thing. And if, let's say it's a safety issue, like for warehouse workers, hey, guess what, team? So and so did this safety thing under our new plan, and I want to publicly recognize them. I don't care if you are the boss or if you're just somebody on the team. Anyone can say, can I have a second? And hey, I want to recognize Susan for doing A, B, C, and D. Let's give her a round of applause. You don't have to be a boss or a supervisor to publicly recognize someone. And
Mhm.
we all know what it's like to be recognized for something that we've done. I don't care how old you get, I don't care what position you're in. When someone recognizes you for doing something, it makes you feel good. And once you
Mhm.
get people to buy into whatever you're selling, woohoo, let's get it,
I
baby.
I
It's a
agree. I
wrap.
mean, Greg, a theme, whether you're talking about failure, trust, buy-in, leadership under pressure, you keep coming back to the idea that leadership is something you build with people, not for people. I think
Absolutely.
that's just such a powerful concept.
and that's something that we hear time and time again when we interview people on this podcast, whether they're talking about change management or you name it, pick the topic. It's focusing on the people and making them a part of the process and doing
Mhm.
that intentionally, doing that by design, not by accident, and making sure that you're baking that into anything that you're trying to train, change, educate people on, that
Yep.
they're
Yep.
truly a part of it from the start.
Right. Right.
I mean, when we talk about most successful teams, um, number one, they have good communication skills. So I can only assume that a lot of the people who will listen to this, as we're teaching and we're helping develop different organizations, communication, do drills on communication, because that is going to be the foundation of your success. Secondly, remind leaders that they need to how do they bring other people in to the planning process to solve problems.
Mhm.
And that's where that, because again, once people are part of the solution, they'll have buy-in. And buy-in is where you believe and you understand, like, hey, this is not just boss's plan. We sat in the conference room and we came up with this, and I'm believing in this. You may not agree with every aspect of the problem or how to solve it, but if you feel like you had a part in it,
Part
it's
in
kind
it.
of like when you have a big spread for like Thanksgiving. You know, if you made the mac and cheese and that's good mac and cheese, you're going to be excited. You're going to feel part of the whole thing. I'm a big boy, so I like to eat. So I love a good food analogy. But I do believe that if even if your piece of that pie is small, it's just so very powerful to watch people who feel a part of developing something that is not only going to help them. And the other thing leaders have to remember is you are not going to be able to change your entire organization. My days in the military, we had this thing called span of control, right? If you can only fix your section, your team, then that's where you focus on that, because
Mhm.
I will guarantee you others will see it, because what Jen is doing for her section has what I call the ramen effect, right? And here's a question for you both. Have you ever seen a commercial for ramen noodles? Either TV, podcast, any digital. You've never seen one, have you? Nope. But everyone eats ramen noodles. Why? Word of mouth.
Word of mouth.
Right. So if you're doing good things in your section, somebody is seeing it and someone is talking about it.
Right. All right. You said food, you said Thanksgiving. This you keep giving
I
me the
know.
perfect
This is like a
segues, right?
softball
But
segue here.
all right, chapter 15, the pie of success.
Oh
Oh my
boy.
gosh. So you argue that only 3% of us end up in the successful slice. But the
Yes.
interesting part isn't that 3%. It's everyone else. It's the way that people accidentally eliminate themselves. And you talk about versions of lazy, and I hate to say it, but it was kind of fun. But I found it intentionally like provocative because you're redefining laziness far beyond the couch, sitting on a couch. You're talking about complacency and excuses and lack of learning. What form of laziness, I'm curious, do you see most often in leaders today?
Content lazy. That's a very
Okay.
easy one.
Mm.
Okay.
So content lazy is where, and this usually happens at the first promotion. I'm going to say, not a regional manager, but the first time
First
someone get,
level after supervisor.
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
All
Yeah.
right. So they are now in charge of people and they have direct reports, right?
Okay.
Because they feel I've worked so hard, I've done all the training, I've done all these things, and now I'm in charge. I'm sticking my chest out for those who can't see me, right? So
Mhm.
they're sticking their chest out and they're like super excited because they're in charge. But guess what they stopped doing? They stopped reading and trying to be an
Learning.
expert at
Yeah.
their craft. They stopped
Hmm.
listening to podcasts. They stopped reading the books. They stopped asking their mentors and the leaders that are above them feedback on how they can become better. They're just they're just shooting from the hip, shooting from the hip, shooting from the hip, right? And then they wonder why one of their direct reports has now surpassed them, and they're like, "Whoa, what happened?" Well, you got content lazy, or they're wondering, why are all my peers who, let's say, got promoted around the same time they did, are now have moved up past those different
Hmm.
levels? I've only been out of the army, 2 years now, so I'm still learning some levels of leadership in a lot of organizations. But after they pass that supervisor manager level, they're watching their friends just go past them. Why? Because they became content and they stopped
Hmm.
learning, they stopped thriving. I think that is the biggest one that happens, especially at that level when they first get those direct reports. They were so excited to get there, and now they get to call themselves a leader, and then they stop learning. They stop caring. They stop trying to remember the reason, said, when I'm in charge, I'm going to do blank differently. They
Yep.
forgot
Yep.
all those things. So that's what I call the content lazy.
Gotcha. So, Greg, what I loved about the book is that you don't teach leadership with theories necessarily, right? You're teaching it through people, through the stories, right? And one of my favorite stories, I was really trying to figure out which one. I kept coming back to Cedric because it reminded me how much potential people have that can be
Oh,
unlocked if a leader sees it and coaches them and mentors them and finds them, right, and does their job. So I'm curious, looking back over your career, you have so many stories to tell and you told a lot of them in the book. Which one resonates? Which one sticks out? Which one comes to mind that says maybe that was the one, the story, the moment, the person that really changed the way you lead?
oh, wow.
I know, right? I'm putting you on the
Um,
She
spot.
starts with a tough question and she's ending with a tough
Ending with a
question.
tough
yeah,
You're up
I
to
question.
the challenge. I know it.
wow. Um, I am probably one of the few people in the world, and I'll say this that I can count on one hand how many bad leaders I have had. I have been, and I don't use the word luck because luck is defined as the hard work that other people don't see. But for me, I would say it started with one of my first leaders, a young lady named Geraldine Ronan. I don't know whatever happened to her, but she uh, was one of the very first supervisors that I ever had, and she showed interest in me
Mhm.
succeeding and was proud, like almost like that, like you're getting ready to experience soon, having a child graduate high school. Like you look at that and you have that proud feeling. When I did things, I saw that in her and I wanted to make her prouder. So if it meant, being better in physical shape and studying materials and doing those things, I was willing to do it because it seemed like she actually cared. And I think when you show someone that they have value in your eyes and you are willing to go with them, hey, Greg, I need you to do these books. Oh, they're long, they're hard, it's a lot of reading. Just keep doing it, keep doing it. Sometimes I didn't like it, but when I found myself getting ready to get promoted, over some people who had been there longer than me, she was like there. So I would say it was probably I was lucky enough to have a good leader who just really invested time, energy, and resources into seeing me succeed. And what made me want to do it was simply sometimes there's just the look on her face, just really made me proud that I was doing the right thing.
It's wonderful. I think we all have, what did you say her name was?
Geraldine
Geraldine.
Ronan.
Geraldine. We all have Geraldines. Mine's a Deb Shavak. And Deb, if you're listening, yeah, I mean, it was just, there's just certain people that have such an influence on your life and get you going on the right path. So
Absolutely.
Well,
thank you. I, of course, enjoyed this. Like I said, I had the hardest time picking out where I wanted to focus because I think we could do a part two and a part three.
I will come back anytime you guys will have me.
this was so much fun and so inspirational. And I think the two of you are going to have a lot of influence on our listeners as they think about their own careers and how they might influence other people. So, Greg Archbold, thank you for joining us. And we'll look forward to sharing more information about your book in the show notes.
All right. Thank you so much. You guys take care.
My thanks to Da Vinci's Jenny Fadulo and our guest, author Greg Archbold, for joining me today. If you have an idea for a topic or guest, please reach out to us at poweredbylearning@davinci.com. And don't forget that you can subscribe to Powered by Learning wherever you listen to your podcasts.